And after going through the first and second stages, we reach the third stage, which is what we call the stage of actively working for the liberation of others. Remember, we must go through the first and second stages in order to reach this one. And by looking at this, we have to bear in mind that even the Buddha himself had to learn how to help other people. Therefore, we must learn how to develop this perfect diligence. And we must give ourselves time, because in order to achieve this perfect diligence, it will of course take a lot of time. And time is not the only thing that we will require. We will also require emotional determination and the thoughtful application of practical methods in terms of achieving perfect diligence. Why are most people lazy? Why do we call so many people lazy? Because they do not truly understand how brief life is. And rather than treasure each moment and every breath, they tend to believe that they can count on an endless succession of days, stretching far into the distant future. But the sutra would tell us otherwise. Let's look at the following quote, where it tells us, "Life shortens with the end of each day. Like a fish running out of water, what good can that be?" This sutra teaches us that we should approach everything we do as if our hair is on fire. Of course, when your hair is on fire, you will know that what requires your attention in that immediate moment is the action of putting out water. And so that type of attention or attitude is required for us in everything we do. Once the Buddha was teaching the Dharma to his disciples, suddenly he asked his disciples, "Do you know how long life is?" One of them replied, 100 years? The Buddha said, "No." Then another one said, 3 days? No. And then the third disciple came along and said to the Buddha, "Life is as long as the length of a breath." The Buddha said, "You got it. That's how short life can be. As life exists between each breath, we need to make every moment in our life count in order for our life to be meaningful." Okay, now imagine if you had a bank account. They will add $86,400 into your bank account every morning. You can do whatever you want. You can draw as much money as you want, just as long as it does not exceed that amount. But at the end of the day, the bank will take away whatever amount of money you still have left over in that bank account. And on the next day, you start fresh again. You start off with $86,400 once again. And they're at your disposal. You can use them however you like. Imagine if you had such a bank account, what would you do? You would draw out every cent, wouldn't you? Because you would not want any of this money to go to waste, right? But let me tell you, you do have such a bank account. And this bank account is what we call time. We have 24 hours in a day. And there are 60 minutes in an hour. And therefore, adding all the number of seconds in each hour, and in all 24 hours of the day, we will have 86,400 seconds to use. You wake up in the morning, you have this amount of time for you to use. But when you close your eyes at the end of the day, however much of the seconds you never made full use of will go away. This is the bank account of life. And if we are aware of its existence, of course, we will now start to learn to make every minute, to learn to make every second count. And remember once again, in Buddhism, it has been said that sentient beings attain Buddhahood mostly because they're diligent, persevering, and determined. No matter how small a task you have been given, just as long as you're diligent, you're persevering, and you're determined, the process of doing that task and completing that task would have been worthwhile. Okay, before we've talked about patience, we've talked about generosity, and we've talked about morality. They're all very important. Wisdom is important too. But without our determination and diligence, we can gain very little benefit out of them. So that's how important diligence can be. And so that was the fourth paramita, the paramita of diligence. Let us now look at the fifth paramita, which is the paramita of concentration or meditation. To explain concentration, in other words, it can be said to be a type of profound awareness. It is a very deep and clear awareness of what is going through our mind. If we were to pay attention to what we're thinking right now, if I was to ask you to close your eyes for even just 30 seconds, okay, in however much time that had passed, what actually went through your mind? You may tell me that you have thought about a lot of things, about what you're going to do tonight, what happened in the day, what you want to do, and the things which you had hoped to turn out in a certain way, and so on. So the thoughts will come very, very fast. They come across your mind very, very fast and in a very short moment. So just by a click of my finger like that, you probably had thousands of thoughts that had already crossed your mind. That's how fast but how short your thoughts can be. And the first step to meditation is to be aware of the existence of such thoughts before you can sort them out, before you can remain calm and clear. In the Sutra of Bequeathed Teachings, it tells us that if you can concentrate your mind, there's nothing you cannot do. Once there was a king who wanted to test the power of mind. Therefore, he decided to try it out on one of his ministers who had made a mistake that resulted in a death sentence. He called upon him, he summoned him, and said to the minister, "Now I give you a second chance to life. What I want you to do now is to put that ball of oil over your head and walk around the imperial city. If you can manage to do so without spilling even a single drop of oil, then I will set you free. You get your life back again." And knowing that it was a matter of life and death, the minister paid all of his attentions onto that ball of oil over his head, and he walked very slowly, very focused across the city. And of course, in the process, the king had set up all kinds of distractions along the way. There were very beautiful ladies dancing around. There were people playing all kinds of tricks and providing all kinds of entertainment, playing music and singing and so on. However, when the minister did manage to go around a circle and come back to the original point, the king found out that he had not dropped even a single drop of oil. So he asked the minister, How did you manage to do this? Didn't you see all the singing, all the dancing? Didn't you hear all the singing and all the distractions along the streets? The minister said, "No, I didn't hear anything or see anything." The king said, "That's not possible, because the street was so crowded with everything going on." But the minister said, "Well, Your Majesty, all I could think about was my life at stake. And so I paid all of my attention to that ball of oil. Therefore, I didn't hear anything or see anything." This story tells us how strong our mind can be and the type of strength and power our focused mind can give to us in achieving something. And most of the time, we're caught up in the needs and desires of our five senses, and we're rarely able to see past the distractions of the phenomenal world. And if we were to be occupied or preoccupied with the sights and sounds of the outer world, we cannot see our pristine Buddha nature that already lies within us. Therefore, this is where the paramita of concentration comes in. Basically, this paramita, or the paramita of concentration, is a skill designed to help us turn our minds away from the external distractions toward the inner peace and wisdom that already lies within us. Therefore, as we talk about concentration, Concentration will be to focus our mental faculties on a single point. And a scattered mind would be like smoke in the wind, or clouds in a storm, or even thunder and lightning. Therefore, in practicing the paramita of concentration, we need to train our mind in being focused and clear. An untrained mind will be like a muddy stream where we cannot see where we're going. And if we learn by training our mind to concentrate, we will gain a new perspective on the stream and discover how to control its latent powers to free it from its senseless wandering. Now, as a way for concentration to help us, concentration allows us to identify our problems. And the next step after that will be contemplation. So concentration, identify problems, contemplation, ways to end these problems. And so concentration can be compared to as a tuft of grass in our fist, while contemplation will be the sickle that cuts the bunch. So concentration allows us to gather up all our thoughts, put them together so we'll be able to analyze them and look at them very carefully. And the next step, which is to deal with these problems or defilements, will be to use the skill of contemplation, which is like a sickle that cuts down these defilements and allow your mind to be clear and calm and collected once again. Okay, so you look at the word concentration and meditation. There is actually a Sanskrit word for it, just like how paramita is a Sanskrit word. And the Sanskrit word for concentration will be samadhi. Now, samadhi is not a state that can only be attained through sitting meditation. In fact, meditation is an important way. It's the most important way for us to focus our mind. But remember, it's not the only way. And so far we've talked about the first 5 paramitas. And remember, we've said in the beginning that the 6 paramitas are a way for us to help ourselves and others gain a happier life. Therefore, all 6 paramitas are meant to be practiced amongst the tomatous sights or sounds of life, as it is known to most people. So, by knowing this, when we start to wonder, then what is the use of concentration that functions only in a quiet room with lights turned down? What's the point of sitting down in a room with your legs crossed, with lights turned down? Can you do anything with that? And can you promise that once you walk out of that room, you will be able to maintain that calm and collected state of mind and in dealing with the world? That's a question which we may need to think about. Okay. Once there was a Chan master who was a very well-practiced man. Therefore, some of his disciples went up to him and said, Master, please tell us how you practice the meditation. The master replied, well, the way I practice meditation is by eating when I'm hungry, by drinking when I'm thirsty, and by sleeping when I'm tired. They thought about this and said, that's simple. Any one of us can do that. Can you stop joking around and tell us how you actually practice meditation? So the Chan master replied, well, although we all do the same thing, we do them differently. When you eat, you complain about the food that is coarse. When you drink, you complain about it not tasting good enough. And when you sleep, you lie in your bed thinking about this, thinking about that. You think about all kinds of things. Therefore, you end up not enjoying your food. You end up not being able to quench your thirst with the drink. And you end up not getting a good night's sleep because of everything that has crossed your mind. Unlike me, on the other hand, I pay all my attention into eating and to enjoy the true taste of that food. And when I drink, I focus on that sweet taste of the water which takes my thirst away. And when I sleep, I simply sleep. I don't think about anything. I don't toss around in bed like all of you do. As soon as I lie down, I'm able to fall asleep and get a good night's rest and then prepare for the next day's task.